Long ago, in the cold waters of the Atlantic Ocean, there was a small green island called Ireland. Many people say Ireland is like the most beautiful woman in old songs. The island is famous for its green hills, quiet lakes, and wild cliffs. But Ireland is not only beautiful, it also has a long and powerful story. For thousands of years, people on this island fought to protect their land, their culture, and their identity. They faced many invasions and many difficult times, but they never lost their spirit. From ancient stone monuments older than the pyramids of Egypt to modern cities full of life, every part of Ireland tells a story. It is a story of courage, pride, and a people who never stopped believing in their homeland. Long before castles and cities appeared, Ireland was a wild island of forests, rivers, and open land. After the last ice age ended, the weather slowly became warmer. Around 10,500 BC, the first people arrived on the island. They were small groups of hunters and gatherers. They traveled by boat and followed animals such as deer and wild boar. These early people lived close to nature. They built simple homes, made stone tools, and learned how to survive on the rich land of Ireland. Over many centuries, these early communities slowly changed. People began to farm, grow crops, and raise animals. They built stronger homes and formed small villages. One of the most amazing things they left behind was a great stone monument called Newgrange. This structure was built more than 5,000 years ago, even older than the pyramids of Egypt. Newgrange was not only a tomb, it was also connected to the stars and the sun. Every year, during the winter solstice, the rising sun shines directly into the long stone passage and lights up the inner chamber. This shows that the ancient people of Ireland had great knowledge of nature and the sky. Even today, Newgrange is one of the most famous prehistoric monuments in the world. Around 500 BC, a new group of people arrived in Ireland. They were known as the Celts. The Celts brought a new language called Gaelic, new traditions, and a strong warrior culture. Over time, Celtic culture became the heart of Irish identity. The Celts did not build one single kingdom. Instead, Ireland was divided into many small kingdoms called Tuatha. There were more than 150 of these small kingdoms across the island. Each kingdom had its own king, warriors, farmers, and storytellers. The kings often fought each other, but they also shared the same culture and traditions. In Celtic society, storytelling and poetry were very important. Special people called bards traveled between kingdoms and told stories about heroes, battles, and ancient legends. These stories helped keep the history and traditions of the Irish people alive. Another important group in Celtic society was the Druids. Druids were teachers, judges, and spiritual leaders. They believed deeply in nature and respected rivers, forests, and the sky. Their knowledge guided many parts of Celtic life. For many centuries, Celtic culture shaped the island of Ireland. The Gaelic language, the clan system, and the strong sense of community all grew during this time. These traditions would stay strong for nearly 2,000 years. A great change came to Ireland in the year 432 AD. A man named Saint Patrick arrived on the island. According to tradition, Patrick had once been a slave in Ireland. After escaping and becoming a Christian priest, he returned to share the message of Christianity with the Irish people. Saint Patrick was wise and patient. Instead of destroying old traditions, he often connected Christian ideas with local customs. Because of this, many people slowly accepted the new religion. Over time, Christianity spread across the island. Monasteries soon became very important places in Ireland. Monks built large religious communities where people prayed, studied, and worked together. Famous monasteries, such as Clonmacnoise and Glendalough, became centers of learning. During this time, much of Europe was going through difficult years. Wars and invasions destroyed many libraries and schools, but in Ireland, monks carefully copied and protected important books. They wrote beautiful manuscripts filled with colorful art and careful writing. One of the most famous examples is the Book of Kells, a magnificent manuscript of the Christian Gospels. Its detailed designs and bright colors show the incredible skill of Irish monks. Because of these monasteries, Ireland became known as a land of saints and scholars. Students and travelers from many parts of Europe came to learn there. In a time when knowledge was disappearing in many places, Ireland became a bright light of education and culture in the Western world. In the year 795, a new and dangerous force appeared on the coasts of Ireland. Long ships with dragon heads moved across the cold sea. On these ships were the Vikings, warriors, and sailors from the north of Europe. They came from places like Norway and Denmark. At first, they came only to raid. They attacked rich monasteries that stood near the coast. These monasteries held gold, silver, and beautiful books. The monks were peaceful people, so the Vikings could attack quickly and leave with treasure. These raids frightened many communities across Ireland. Monasteries that once stood quietly near the sea now lived in fear. Some monks tried to hide their valuable manuscripts. Others moved further inland. For many years, Viking ships appeared again and again along the Irish coast. But the Vikings were not only raiders. Over time, many of them decided to stay. They began to build permanent settlements near rivers and natural harbors. These places slowly grew into busy trading towns. Vikings were skilled traders, and they connected Ireland to wider trade networks across Europe. Some of the most important Irish cities today began as Viking settlements. Dublin started as a Viking port and trading center. Other towns such as Waterford and Limerick also grew from Viking foundations. These towns became places where different cultures met. Irish farmers, Viking traders, and travelers from other lands all came together there. Although Vikings settled in Ireland, conflicts with Irish kings continued. Many Irish leaders wanted to push them out and protect their land. One of the most famous Irish kings during this time was Brian Boru. He was a strong and determined leader who slowly united many Irish kingdoms under his authority. Brian Boru believed that Ireland should be free from Viking control. In the year 1014, a great battle took place near Dublin. This battle is known as the Battle of Clontarf. On one side were the forces of Brian Boru and many Irish warriors. On the other side were Viking fighters and their allies. The battle was long and fierce. By the end of the day, Brian Boru's army won the victory. The power of the Vikings in Ireland was broken. However, the victory came at a great cost. Brian Boru himself was killed during the battle. Even though he died, his victory marked the end of Viking military dominance in Ireland. After this time, Viking communities slowly became part of Irish society. They traded, married, and lived alongside the Irish people. The towns they built continued to grow and would later become some of the most important cities in the country. However, Ireland would soon face another powerful invasion. In 1169, a new group of warriors arrived on the island. They were the Normans, originally from northern France, but closely connected to England. Their arrival was not only a military invasion. It began with a political struggle between Irish kings. A powerful Irish ruler named Diarmuid mac Murchada had lost his kingdom. In order to regain his power, he asked Norman knights for help. One of the most famous of these knights was Richard de Clare, who was also known as Strongbow. Strongbow and his soldiers came to Ireland and helped Diarmuid win back his throne. But the Normans did not plan to leave. They began to take land and build strong castles across parts of Ireland. Their power quickly grew, and this situation caught the attention of the King of England. In 1171, King Henry II of England arrived in Ireland with a large force. He wanted to make sure the Norman lords remained loyal to him. Henry declared himself the ruler of Ireland and established English authority over an area around Dublin known as the Pale. This moment began a long political connection between Ireland and England. Over the next several centuries, English influence would slowly expand across the island. What began as a small military intervention would grow into a relationship that would shape Irish history for nearly 800 years. During the 1500s, a new and powerful change came to Ireland. England was now ruled by the Tudor kings, and they wanted stronger control over the island. In 1541, King Henry VIII made an important decision. He declared himself the King of Ireland. Before this, English rulers only called themselves the Lords of Ireland. Now Henry VIII wanted full authority over the country. Henry also brought a new religion. In England, he had separated from the Catholic Church and created the Church of England, also called the Anglican Church. He wanted Ireland to follow the same religious system. New laws were introduced, and English officials tried to replace the old Gaelic traditions with English customs and government. However, most Irish people remained loyal to the Catholic faith and their traditional way of life. Many Gaelic lords still ruled large parts of the countryside. They spoke the Gaelic language and followed their own ancient laws. Because of this, tension between English authorities and Irish leaders grew stronger. One of the most powerful Gaelic leaders was Hugh O'Neill, the Earl of Tyrone. He believed that Irish chiefs should defend their land and traditions. In 1594, a major conflict began, known as the 9 Years' War. Irish forces led by Hugh O'Neill fought against English armies for control of the island. At first, the Irish forces had some success. They knew the land well and used clever tactics to challenge the English army. For a time, it seemed possible that the Gaelic leaders might protect their independence. But the war continued for many years, and the English government sent more soldiers and resources. The turning point came in 1601 at the Battle of Kinsale in southern Ireland. Spanish forces had come to help the Irish rebels, but the plan failed. English troops surrounded the area, and the Irish alliance was defeated. After this loss, the resistance of the Gaelic lords began to collapse. A few years later, in 1607, an important and symbolic event took place. Hugh O'Neill and several other Gaelic leaders left Ireland and sailed to mainland Europe. This event is known as the Flight of the Earls. They hoped to find support from Catholic countries, but they never returned to rule their lands again. The departure of these leaders marked the end of the old Gaelic political system that had existed for centuries. After this, English control over Ireland became much stronger, and large areas of land were taken from Irish nobles. Only a few decades later, Ireland entered another dark and violent period. In 1641, a rebellion broke out between Irish Catholics and Protestant settlers who had arrived from England and Scotland. The conflict quickly spread across the island and caused great fear and destruction. In 1649, a powerful English leader named Oliver Cromwell arrived in Ireland with a large army. Cromwell wanted to crush the rebellion and secure English rule. His campaign was extremely harsh. Towns that resisted were attacked, and many soldiers and civilians were killed. Large amounts of land were taken from Irish Catholic landowners and given to Protestant settlers loyal to England. Many Irish families were forced to leave their homes and move to poorer land in the West. Because of war, hunger, and disease, the population of Ireland dropped sharply during these years. The conflict between Catholics and Protestants continued for decades. Another major turning point came in 1690 at the Battle of the Boyne. Two rival kings fought for the English throne: James II, who was Catholic, and William of Orange, who was Protestant. The battle took place near the River Boyne in eastern Ireland. William's army defeated James II. This victory strengthened Protestant political power in Ireland. Afterward, a system known as the Protestant ascendancy developed. Under this system, the Protestant minority controlled most of the land, government, and wealth. To secure this power, a series of strict laws called the Penal Laws were introduced. These laws limited the rights of Catholics. Catholics could not hold important government positions, own certain types of land, or receive full education. These restrictions shaped Irish society for many generations and created deep divisions that would influence the country's future. By the late 1700s, Ireland was still under strong British control. Most political power remained in the hands of the Protestant minority, while the Catholic majority had very limited rights. Many Irish people wanted greater freedom and fair representation in government. In 1798, a large rebellion broke out. A group called the United Irishmen hoped to create a more equal and independent Ireland. They were inspired by the ideas of the American and French revolutions. Catholics, Protestants, and Reformers joined together with the dream of building a new nation. However, the rebellion was not successful. British forces defeated the uprising after months of fighting. After this rebellion, the British government decided to tighten its control over Ireland. In 1801, a major political change took place. The Act of Union officially joined Ireland and Great Britain into one political state called the United Kingdom. The Irish Parliament in Dublin was abolished, and Irish representatives were now sent to the British Parliament in London. For many Irish people, this meant the loss of their political independence. During this difficult time, a peaceful leader began to rise. His name was Daniel O'Connell. He believed that change could happen through law and peaceful protest rather than violence. Because of his efforts, large public movements began to grow across Ireland. O'Connell organized meetings, speeches, and political campaigns to demand equal rights for Catholics. His movement became very popular among ordinary people. Many Irish citizens supported him because he gave them hope for a better future. In 1829, after years of pressure and political struggle, an important victory was achieved. The British government passed a law known as Catholic Emancipation. This law allowed Catholics to vote and to sit as members of Parliament. Because of this achievement, Daniel O'Connell, became known as the Liberator. But only a few years later, Ireland faced one of the greatest tragedies in its history. In 1845, a disease began to destroy the potato crops across the country. For many poor Irish families, potatoes were the main source of food. When the crop failed, millions of people suddenly faced hunger. The disaster lasted for several years and became known as the Great Famine, or in Irish, Gortamór. Fields of potatoes turned black and rotten. Families had little food and no money. Many people became weak from hunger and disease. During this terrible period, around 1 million people died from starvation and illness. Another 1 million people were forced to leave their homeland in search of survival. Many sailed across the Atlantic Ocean to countries such as the United States, Canada, and Australia. The famine changed Ireland forever. The population dropped sharply, and many villages became empty. The suffering also created deep anger toward the British government, which many people believed had failed to help the Irish population enough during the crisis. From this pain and loss grew a stronger desire for independence. The memory of the Great Famine would remain in Irish history as a powerful reminder of hardship, survival, and the longing for self-rule. At the beginning of the 20th century, the dream of independence grew stronger in Ireland. Many people wanted their country to govern itself instead of being ruled by Britain. Tensions slowly increased across the island. In 1916, a group of Irish nationalists started a rebellion in Dublin during the Easter holiday. This event became known as the Easter Rising. The rebels declared the birth of an Irish republic. However, the British army quickly surrounded them and defeated the uprising after several days of fighting. At first, many people were unsure about the rebellion, but when the British government executed the rebel leaders, public opinion changed. The leaders were now seen as heroes who had died for Ireland. Support for independence began to grow quickly. Soon after, a new war began between Irish fighters and British forces. This conflict was called the Irish War of Independence. The Irish Republican Army, or IRA, used guerrilla warfare under the leadership of Michael Collins. Instead of large battles, they used small and fast attacks against British forces. In 1921, both sides agreed to sign the Anglo-Irish Treaty. This agreement created the Irish Free State, giving most of Ireland the right to govern itself. However, 6 counties in the north remained part of the United Kingdom. This division created Northern Ireland. The treaty also caused disagreement among Irish leaders, which led to a painful civil war between Irish people themselves. The war ended in 1923, but the division between North and South remained. In Northern Ireland, tensions between Protestant and Catholic communities continued for many years. Many Catholics believed they were treated unfairly in jobs, housing, and politics. In the late 1960s, protests for equal rights began. Unfortunately, the situation turned violent and led to a long conflict known as the Troubles. For nearly 30 years, Northern Ireland experienced bombings, shootings, and political violence. Finally, in 1998, an important peace agreement was reached. It was called the Good Friday Agreement. This agreement created a system where different groups could share political power. It helped bring an end to decades of violence and opened a new chapter of peace for the island. The story of Ireland teaches us a powerful lesson about identity, courage, and hope. Over many centuries, the Irish people faced invasion, war, hunger, and division. At times, The country even lost a large part of its population, especially during the Great Famine. Yet Ireland never lost its spirit. One important lesson is persistence. The Irish people protected their culture, language, and traditions through many difficult years. These things helped them keep their identity even when they were under foreign rule. Another lesson is the value of peace. After centuries of conflict and pain, the people of Ireland slowly learned that cooperation and understanding were the only paths to a better future. Agreements like the Good Friday Agreement showed that dialogue can replace violence. Finally, the history of Ireland reminds us of the power of compassion. During the hardest times, families and communities supported each other. Their unity helped them survive and rebuild their nation.